Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, August 17th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website, IndianCountryNews.com. And here are some of the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Plans 3 years in the making for a sculpture honoring Angie Debo continue on toward the statue's expected delivery on September 30th of this year. Upon completion, the bronze sculpture created by Stillwater artist Phyllis Mantic will reside at the Stillwater Public Library to honor the Oklahoma historian and activist. Library Director Linda Reynolds recently told the Stillwater Public Library Trust Board that more than $59,700 of a $65,000 budget has been raised in donations for the sculpture. Reynolds also gave updates on the goal to add the 38 Native American tribal seals of Oklahoma to the base of the sculpture. Debo was born in 1890 and grew up in Oklahoma. She passed away in 1988. She researched and wrote about Native Americans in Oklahoma and their fight for civil rights, a subject that she actively participated in. And today we talk with Assistant Professor of Religious Studies at the Indiana University at the Indianapolis campus and Director of American Indian Programs there, Potawatomi, Johnny Flynn, about disenrollment of tribal members in political opposition. His family joins other tribal families being kicked out of tribes through disenrollment for speaking out.
Would you tell me a little bit about what it is that you've been following here and why it may be of interest to other people in the country who might be facing the same kind of a situation? Give me a little bit of history and where we're at today.
Well, I've been following the disenrollment of Indians in California, and I kind of knew that it was being used as a political weapon against families who were on the outs with each other for whatever reason. And I was afraid that it would be picked up eventually in Oklahoma. And sure enough, it was. I believe that we have a chairman, John Rocky Barrett, who is probably the most corrupt tribal chairman in the United States. And so 2 years ago, they passed legislation specifically designed to go after certain people in the tribe, which said that if you receive compensation from another tribe, even if you're not enrolled, you are subject to disenrollment. So last night, they disenrolled one of my cousins, Diana Brassfield, from the tribe because she also receives payments from the Osage due to headright payments that many people receive from the Osage, even though they're not tribal members.
And headrights are having to do with minerals or oil in particular?
Yeah, back in the day when the Osage, when oil was discovered on the Osage reservation, it was not given out to tribal members per se. Each tribal member, however, received a headright, and so those headrights were like a share, and those shares could be handed down even to non-Indians, or in the case of my cousin, to an Indian who was actually enrolled with another tribe. So she has Osage blood, she's just never been enrolled with the Osage. But she inherited through her family a fractionated portion of an Osage headright. So,
would it be similar to someone passing away and having 100 shares of stock and 4 children? They divided that stock up between the 4 children, and therefore the children are now the beneficiary of ExxonMobil stock, and they get paid. Therefore, they're getting royalty payments through their business investment, even though they're not a board of directors of Exxon.
Or they don't have to be an employee of Exxon in order to receive those payments. And you're right, Paul. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I'm enough Sac and Fox blood to be on the Sac and Fox roll, but I'm on the Potawatomi roll. Theoretically, my grandmother or my great-grandmother, who was an Alati, and sold her allotment many years ago, if she hung on to it, theoretically, I could share in mineral rights that are being paid to the second Fox and be subject to disenrollment from the Potawatomi. And what's insidious about this is that it's aimed at those Potawatomi, citizen Potawatomi, who are, let's say, more Indian than other people who are enrolled with the tribe. So it's really specifically aimed at those people, those of us among the citizen Potawatomi, who have been more active in cultural revitalization.
Can you center yourself up again in the middle there a little bit there? You're leaning a little bit and you'll get off to the edge in the final product. But let's ask this. You're saying that this law was passed 2 years ago. And does it seem, what's the background behind it? Why did they feel that they needed to pass this law?
Well, because they had, I'll give you an example. Rocky Barrett has been tribal chairman for 25 years. You don't stay in a tribal position like that without, for that many years, without corrupting the system. So, in 2001, his political opponent was a tribal employee, ran the museum, and as soon as she filed to run for tribal chairman, he fired her and eventually drove her son, who ran a smoke shop, into bankruptcy by charging him with the loss of a burglary that occurred at the smoke shop. In 2005, my uncle, Leon Bruno, he ran for tribal chairman against Rocky Barrett. Rocky had him arrested and charged with criminal defamation of character. The reason is because Leon put on his campaign website a letter that he had written to the two senators from Oklahoma, simply asking for an audit of tribal finances. That request for an audit, Mr. Barrett considered to be criminal defamation of character. Now, in any other court in the land, defamation of character is a civil case, but in the Potawatomi courts, it became a criminal case. Well, Leon was acquitted by a jury of his peers after spending thousands of dollars for an attorney. In a year and a half ago, Diana Brassfield ran against Chairman Barrett. Well, she was not a tribal employee, and the criminal defamation of character attack proved to be unsuccessful. So he came at it in another way, and in this new way, what he's trying to do is he's trying to throw Diana, well, it did last night, throw her out of the tribe for taking payment from another tribe. Now, theoretically, that could be used for any citizen Potawatomi who, for instance, works for the Kickapoo or works for the Chippewa or works for any other tribe, because in theory, you're receiving compensation from that tribe.
Indeed, very broadly. It does appear that this whole issue of disenrollment and people in power is being utilized more and more to suppress what some people call dissidents or political, let's just say political opposition on the reservation. And you cited now 3 or 4 different people who've had actions taken against them. They are all actively opposed to Mr. Barrett.
Well, there's 2 issues. One is, as a journalist, you know that there is no freedom of the press in Indian country. It is publications like your own, News from Indian Country, that serve as a kind of watchdog to tribal governments that are run amok. But you can't put out every fire. You can't investigate every allegation. So it's incumbent upon individual tribes to use the political process to clean up corruption in the tribe. But if the corruption is so pervasive, decades long in this case, how do you clean it up? And the answer is you try to remove those cancers that have been there for so long. And it's impossible. And it's an intimidation tactic. Because the people who are most likely to be receiving compensation from other tribes, be it a head right from the Osage or a paycheck from the Chippewa, are those who are most likely to know and be aware of the political and social vagaries of an Indian tribe. In other words, people who are more likely to be savvy about the use of the system in order to get rid of this corruption, this is directed right at them.
You've been, accused of, from remotely of being part of this whole situation in which your chairman is being questioned about his activities and everything. Have you seen some recriminations yourself?
Yeah, my late wife and I, Leanne, we were both tribal members. About 8 years ago, we wrote a letter to the editor of a newspaper in Oklahoma, and a copy of it was forwarded on to the tribe. Her and I were both sued, again, defamation of character for simply writing a letter to the editor. And we refused to recognize the jurisdiction of the tribal court because we lived in Indiana. And so we had were fined in absentia $40,000 apiece. And actually there was an attempt made after she died to go after her insurance policy, which went to her sons for her son's education, in order to pay $40,000 to the guy who felt that he was wrong. Now, the gist of what we wrote in the letter was true and still holds true. It's no longer possible to file against upper administration officials or tribal representatives for sexual harassment. And what we pointed out was that there were quite a number of upper administration employees who were guilty of sexual harassment, and quite a number of grievances had been filed. So in order to remedy the situation, they simply made it illegal to file on sexual discrimination charges. So women or even men who are subject to sexual harassment in the tribe have no recourse. We also were arrested along with 6 others in 2003 for, again, putting a campaign letter on a website. 7 of us were arrested and charged with criminal defamation of character, and after thousands of dollars of legal fees, those charges were dropped because they could not find a single attorney in the state of Oklahoma willing to press charges against us.
What is the lesson for other tribal people? We got about a minute left in today's program, but what's the lesson? How can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you for some assistance or something?
Well, you can reach me through my email address, which is jopflynn@iupui.edu. You can also find me at the Indiana University, Purdue University, Indiana website. I'm doing research on corruption in Indian country and the reaction of tribal officials. But my late wife, Leanne, used to say something that has been a war cry for me, and that is, we will not be silent. We don't care how long it takes. We don't care how many people fall to the broad acts of corrupt tribal officials. We will not be silent. And I think that's the best thing you can say to other tribal members. When you see corruption, no matter what they do to you, do not be silenced by their actions.
Okay. Thanks, Johnny Flynn. We appreciate your time today. I suspect that this conversation is just getting going, and we'll be back to you again to talk a little bit more about it and talk to some of the other people around the country about the same issue.
And
thank you. And
you're
a
roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank you all for joining with us, and stop by for another conversation soon.